All right, welcome to the Dales Report, and happy to be joined here today with the Chief Medical and Scientific Officer of Small Pharma Limited, Carol Routledge. Dr. Carol Routledge, I should say, joins us. How are you, Dr. Routledge?
I'm great, thank you, Shad.
Good. You are based in the UK. How's the weather? How's everybody doing over in the UK? I know there's we talked to people all over the world related to COVID, but just the well-being of, I guess, of our fellow friends from the United Kingdom.
Yeah, well, weather, let's not go there, though. It's not too bad now. It's been a pretty wet summer. We've had some heat waves, but pretty wet summer. But actually, we are just starting to come out of the whole COVID thing now. The vaccination program, as you know, has been brilliant in the UK. They've done a sterling job. And so hopefully, well, actually, even now, things are very much getting back to normal. So yeah, light at the end of the tunnel. So it doesn't matter what the weather's like. It doesn't matter because there's light at the end of the tunnel.
It's great country for sure. Let's first begin with on who you are. You have a rich history as a doctor who has studied neurology and psychiatry. So saying that, I'd like to learn more about, where you've worked, your qualifications, and most importantly, what was it that made you shift from conventional psychiatric medicine to the experimental world of psychedelics?
So in terms of my background, so I have been a neuroscientist nearly all my career, so straight from PhD. And the reason I went into neuroscience in the first place is not that exciting. I had a brilliant neuroscience lecturer at university, and you tend to follow that. Really interesting. My first role, so then I did a PhD in neuropharmacology, and then my first role actually was out in California, establishing a neuroscience department in preclinical neuroscience. Great living in California, missed England, too much sun, a bit boring weather, so I came back and worked for a company called Wyeth, again in preclinical neuroscience, and then moved to SmithKline Beecham, and that's where I transitioned into translational medicine. So translational medicine is that bit between non-clinical science and clinical science, and so you use all the learnings of non-clinical and you put them into clinical studies. I actually like translational medicine. Probably that's the best phase of clinical development. But then obviously GSK, because Glaxo and SmithKline Beecham merged. Right. And then I went to my first biotech, really just to extend my therapeutic reach. So I worked in neurology, psychiatry, a little bit oncology, which was great, and a little bit inflammation. Stayed in biotech 6.5 years, which was absolutely great. They wanted to move to hospital-based products. So actually I came back to GSK and worked in biopharmaceuticals, which was an area that I wasn't really familiar with, therapeutic antibodies, but that was great too. And believe it or not, even in neuroscience, even though they cross the blood-brain barrier very, very little. And then moved from GSK to a venture capital for a couple of years, not really my thing. Worked for a neurodegeneration charity for 3.5 years. That was really great, working on Alzheimer's disease, Parkinson's disease, scientifically very interesting, huge medical need. And we funded a lot of really good research. So from there to here, and why to here? So I think I was looking for an opportunity to get back into drug discovery and development. It's still my passion. It's still what I really, really like doing. I wanted to work for a small company because I hadn't really done that yet. I've worked for biotech, but not a tiny company. And this caught my eye. And I have to say, I was quite skeptical when I came for interview because I've never worked in the psychedelic space before. I thought, really, is this really going to work? But actually following my interview, I met the whole team. I met Peter Rands. And by the end of that day's interview, I was fairly convinced that this was a real revolutionary way to treat depressive and anxiety disorders. And the team were taking it towards the clinic, so clearly it wasn't there yet. But I actually thought, you know what, this actually could really, really work. And hence I came here. So that was my move into psychedelic assisted therapy. Well,
Small Pharma quickly positioning themselves as a leader in DMT research. But before we get into that, we had Peter obviously ran the CEO on last month. You're a UK-based company. I'd like to learn a little bit more on that angle, and especially from a doctor's point of view. And that is the amount of qualitative research that's being conducted out of the UK related to psychedelics, knowing the robust psychedelic research framework as evidenced by the work of Dr. Robin Carhart-Harris at Imperial College of London, as well perhaps the biggest company in the industry right now, Compass Pathways. So how advanced, knowing that you've worked both in North America and in the UK, how advanced is the UK from a regulatory perspective compared to the US or say even Canada?
Yeah, so you're absolutely right in terms of UK leading this field. So the Centre for Psychedelic Drug Research at Imperial College has really been leading this for a number of years with David
Right.
Nutt and Robin Carhart-Harris and David Arizzo. So they have spearheaded it for a while, overcoming a lot of those hurdles that were put in place. But now I would say regulatory authorities, both in the UK, so the MHRA, but also in Europe and FDA, they are moving with this field. They are moving forward with this field. So, you could ask me, are they inhibitory? Are they limiting what you're able to do? Absolutely not. So Small Pharma have sought scientific advice from the MHRA twice now.
Okay.
Once before we took DMT into our first clinical trial, and they helped us expedite to the clinic. So there's a lot of human experience with DMT, and based on that human experience, they said, well, you don't need to do this large tox package. There's lots of safety data already. You can go straight to the clinic. So that's really positive. And then our second advice was around the phase 2B study. And again, the same positivity that we found in the first place. Clearly, they offered some suggestions around a number of things, but nothing that would indicate that they don't believe that this could provide a really, really great treatment for depressive and anxiety disorders and could really get to the root cause of the problem. We will seek advice from the FDA very, very shortly. We are expecting to get the same thing from the FDA. I can update you when we do that, but I actually do not think regulatory authorities are inhibitory any longer. In fact, if anything, they're facilitatory. They are really helping us move these molecules into patients. I think they really believe in the mechanism of action and what these treatments could really deliver.
So really, when I asked the question, because I was going to ask, do you see psychedelic medicines being approved in the UK and Europe before they are in North America? But does it really even matter, knowing that, you're working closely with a lot of companies, I should say, institutions across the world?
Yeah, I don't really think it matters if the psychedelics are approved first in the UK, first in Europe, or first in the US. And in fact, before you apply for market authorization, you do phase 3 studies. And your phase 3 studies are usually international, so multi-country and multi-site. So those studies will be done in Europe, in America, in UK, probably in Canada, maybe in a number of other countries. And then I guess the company can decide where to put the market authorization first or in parallel.
Right.
And lots of companies go to UK, Europe, and the US in parallel. Usually one comes out slightly ahead, but you're right, it doesn't matter. I think all of these countries, ultimately, once we've produced the data, the efficacy data, the safety data, the tolerability data, I think all of these countries will have the same opinion in terms of approving this type of treatment.
Well, where do you think we are currently today? Like, we've seen a lot of advancement here in 2021, but for you to obviously come over to a company like this, there must be something that obviously pulls your attention, grabs your attention. You must be very optimistic about the industry as a whole. But do you think this changes the healthcare system, an industry like this? And I've asked this question before to other doctors on here before.
Yeah, so I think this will, and like I said, we have to, provide the clinical data, demonstrate it first, but I really think this will. So where are we? We currently are in a situation where there are many different antidepressant treatments on the market. I am not going to downplay any of them because they work in a proportion of patients. And honestly, that's like any medicine in any therapeutic area. In dementia, the medicines that work in about a third of the patients, and transiently. So this area isn't any different. But that still leaves a lot of patients untreated. And then many of those patients on treatment do relapse. And then also antidepressants like SSRIs have side effects. Some patients can't tolerate them. So there is a need for an innovative new approach, and an approach that will hopefully deliver a more tolerable, safer medicine to the clinic and to the market. And I think that's what psychedelic assisted therapy brings along. So it brings that, a safer, well-tolerated medicine to patients. And people will say, but you have to go through a psychedelic experience. You do, but that's part of your treatment.
Right.
And it is done in a really controlled way in clinic. And even when this treatment, if this treatment is on the market, it will still be done in clinic with a therapist. So it's done in a really safe, controlled, supported way. And I do really believe.
Do you see a lot of people coming in that are nervous? Because let's face it, there's like just the thought of it. I'm sure people are like, there are probably some, what would you say what stands out to you? Like, we talk all about the momentum and the excitement of psychedelics. However, at the same time too, what are some common questions that people do ask that are nervous about actually doing the actual medication?
So we see a little nervousness, but actually in our clinical trial, we have an anxiety score. So we can actually measure before, as patients, as healthy volunteers come in and before they dose, just how anxious they are or they aren't. And in almost all cases, they're not. I think we've probably had one instance of slight anxiety, but that's because you do this set and setting piece. So the set is the room that you dose them in, and you make it in a very relaxed room, and then you do the setting. So you talk to them about what they're going to experience, you talk to them about keeping their mind open to the experience. So I think the support you give them goes a long way to reducing that anxiety, and we certainly have not seen marked anxiety. And our phase 1 trial is conducted in psychedelic naive healthy volunteers, so they've never experienced a psychedelic before, and they don't come to the study anxious, and they ask lots of questions, but the therapist can answer those questions.